And hello, Chicago. Welcome into a special Sunday edition of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. No, you haven't gotten the calendar wrong. It is Sunday. We moved the show up a week, so if you're listening on Monday and going, hey, wait a minute, why isn't it live? Why did it happen? We did the show on Sunday for the holiday, and we've got a different kind of show in store for you today. We're going to be, rather than doing our typical news of the week that we've been doing and enjoy and have all kinds of fun with, we've got a different kind of show in store for you this afternoon. We're taking a page out of the Sports Couple Perspective show. You can hear them on Friday evenings, Larry and his wonderful wife, Cecilia. And we're going to be breaking down a movie today. Not just any movie, one of the best baseball movies of all time. We'll be getting into that. We'll have some trivia, some fun things about it, as well as, of course, just going through why we love it as much as we do. And then we might get into some news and some other fun things throughout the show. But it's the holidays, everybody. Let's enjoy it and celebrate a little bit. This is Chi-Town Weekly. Let's go. And hello, and once again, good afternoon, everybody, and hope you are enjoying your Memorial Day weekend. Adam Karnick of Chi-Town Weekly here with you. A very different show lined up for you here today. With the holidays, thought it'd be a good idea to take it a little easy a little bit. Have some fun. There's always news happening in the sports world of Chicago. We'll get into that. I got into some of it on Twitter during this past week. Check the Twitter feed, both of IE Sports Radio and this show, plus all the other social platforms. I got into some of the news of the week there. But we're going to have some other kinds of fun here with you today. Before we go any further, of course, we do want to handle our homework, if you will, here on the show. And, of course, that's going to be telling you a little bit about IE Sports Radio, who and what we are. For the last 9 years now, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you outstanding content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to bringing you tailor-made shows to all corners of the U.S. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout-out on every single one of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. I want to thank our Patreon supporters at this point: Bay Area Raised, Emlos Great, Key to the Gate, and our anonymous supporter. And then you can go onto the website, iesportsradio.com. We have the Patreon link right there to it. You can also check out all the different shows we have here at the station, plus bios and interesting tidbits about all the different hosts and personalities as well here at the station. Ways that you can follow along with us. IE Sports Radio is available for you all of the major social platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just search at IE Sports Radio. This show is available for you as well on Twitter at IESRC, or you can follow along with me personally on Twitter. I am at Adam_Karnick. And if you are listening live here on this Sunday afternoon. Hop on into the chat room in Spreaker. Larry B is there. Taryn Rodriguez is there. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Taryn is pulling the double duty that he always does. He is currently covering the National Volleyball Association's weekend matches right now. The Chicago Untouchables are playing as we speak, so he's going to be keeping us updated with that, though it doesn't sound like things are going well for the Untouchables. They got their first win. They did win their first match yesterday. It looks like they're not going to be making it 2 in a row, though. But we'll see. Hopefully something will turn around here with that. And before we go any further, do want to say thank you to all the families of veterans that unfortunately gave their lives for our country. And that is the reason for Memorial Day, so we don't want to go any further before we say a solemn thank you to those families. We know that obviously this is probably not the easiest of holidays for you guys, but thank you for your family's service and sacrifice. It is appreciated. All right, so we got a very different kind of show in store for you here this afternoon. Normally, the show, we do kind of a news of the week, let you know what's going on with the Bears or the Sox or the Cubs. Going to be doing things a little bit differently here today. There is a fantastic baseball movie, one of the best baseball movies of all time in our household's opinion anyway, that is celebrating its 30th anniversary this summer. Later on this summer, it'll be celebrating 30 years since its release. And I decided that we would have some fun, enjoy this weekend, and talk about this movie. We are talking, of course, about Rookie of the Year. Good old Henry Rowengartner and his busted arm, making him the best closer in Chicago Cubs history. And to help us go through it, you notice I'm using us a lot today. Well, that's because we've got a very special guest as part of the program tonight. My wife, Stephanie, is in with us, and she is going to be helping talk about this movie because this is also just one of her all-time classic favorites. Good afternoon, Steph.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I'm good. Are you ready to talk about a movie?
I am.
You ready to have some fun talking about a fun movie?
I am. It takes me way back, actually.
Yeah, I know. You have, been prepping for this like crazy. You've watched the movie at least a half dozen times here in the last month since we've been talking about this. You're making me proud. You're diving through the IMDb database on the movie, all the actors, all the everything you can to get yourself set and ready for this. You're just ready to dive in with both feet, aren't you?
I am. And it takes me way back. I saw this movie for the first time, 5th grade, Mr. Reichley's class, actually. It's interesting. It just made such an impact on my life. But I can relate to Henry because, he was 12 at the time and I wasn't too far behind him. He's only 2 years older than me. So it's relatable to the fact that, we were very similar and close to age. And I'm a huge fan of baseball. When the Metrodome was around in Minneapolis, it's now Target Field. But we went to the Metrodome, we saw Twins games, the hot dogs, the atmosphere, and this movie just hits really close to home.
And a quick reminder for my wife was born and raised in Minnesota, hence why she's making the Twins references. Don't worry, we've gotten her kind of moved over to the Cubs. She still has some Twins stuff, and that's fine. That's all well and good. But we do have her with some National League stuff as well. So let's dive into this movie a little bit here, shall we? We've got, of course, this is the classic story of it's every kid's dream story of you've got the kid that gets to play for his major league team. Only in the case of young Henry, he doesn't bother to wait till he grows up. He just goes and pitches for the Cubs as a kid because why not, right?
and I mean the way it's the way he gets there is so unique. So to kind of set the stage, if you're not familiar with the movie, he's on this baseball awkward kid, trying to make his way, figure things out. Plays for Little League baseball, like a lot of young boys do, and has his game. I think the play that he makes is the play of the day, as he puts it in the movie. He finally gets his chance to play in the outfield, and fly ball gets to him, right? Hits the back fence, falls down, can't find it, ends up throwing the ball over the outfield fence. He threw it home, but he didn't throw it to home plate. And so
hold on just a second. We appear to be having some audio technical difficulties here. Hold on just a second. Here, you grab this one. Go ahead.
Where should I pick up?
Just start from talking about the movie. If you're not familiar with the movie.
Henry, 12 years old, trying to find his way, plays for a Little League team. Awkward kid trying to find his way. And makes the play of the day on his home field, throws the ball over the outfield fence. His friend happens to make the comment, "Is that play legal?" And I didn't have a chance to look that up. If there's ever been any instances of that going over the outfield wall. But ends up at school with the same team, kind of being made fun of. And there's this girl, as there sometimes are at school, a ball is hit on the playground, and he goes out for that ball, and happens to slip on another ball, falls down full force on his right shoulder, henceforth breaking it. Rotator cuff damage, all kinds of different things. Now, the way they put the cast on him is kind of interesting. Wouldn't you say, Adam?
Yeah, interesting is a good word for it, yeah.
They end up putting the cast around his abdomen and then casting it upwards and out. So it's kind of like a right angle parallel with his body. So not a normal way to cast it, but, for the sake of a movie. Makes a conversation. He's in it the whole summer, comes back, and goes through his doctor visit. They check everything out. Bones are healed. And then he has him do some rotation. And eventually breaks the doctor's nose because he comes down on him and breaks his nose. And I believe the line there is funky butt loving.
Yes, the doctor says funky butt loving. And everybody looks and goes, "What? Funky what?"
Yeah, George, he's like, "Did he just say funky butt loving?" Now, it'd be interesting to find out what that word was actually supposed to be, but, I mean, this is a children's film. But then they go on to see the Cubs game. Mom goes ahead and gets the three friends, Henry and his friends, tickets to the home Cubs game. As they're coming down the escalator, she hands them the envelope, "Happy cast-off day," and kind of does a mic drop moment. "Thank you, I'm the greatest mother of all time," kind of thing. And it's the three friends, they take the subway to the game, and as they were. It was what month did they claim they were filming this in? Was this August?
Well, the movie starts in April. It actually opens on opening day at Wrigley Field.
Oh yeah, take me back to that.
So it opens in April, but then the bulk of the film then takes place in August and September. So we fast forward quite a bit to the end of the season is where a lot of the film takes place then.
So they're at this game, and bleacher rules. You never keep a home run hit by the other team, right? So one of the stand bums throws the first home run out, right? And then another one is hit towards the kids, and the ball is passed down because no one wants to embarrass themselves, right? It's on cable, back when cable was like the primary thing, going back there. And so they pass the ball to Henry. Henry does his windup, but of course his arm has healed in a very interesting way. throws a frozen rope from center field to home plate. The entire stadium goes quiet, and things progress from there.
Yeah, and from there you have Henry becoming the instantaneous star. The Cubs brass goes nuts trying to find the individual who threw that ball from center field all the way to home plate. They wind up finding that it was a kid, that they track him down, and he gets an invitation to join the Cubs. And from there, it's every Little League kid's dream come true. He is a member of the Cubs. We get to see him get dropped off at Wrigley Field before a game and go through the back tunnel. I'm sure it's a set. I'm sure they didn't actually film in the locker room of Wrigley Field, but they have the locker room set up there, and he goes, and the first thing he does is walks up to his favorite player and asks for his autograph, which is one of the most kid things you'd expect to have happen at that point. It'd just be, well, yeah, of course that's what he's going to do. He's going to go up to his hero and ask for his autograph, sure. And he's promptly told, no, I'm not signing autographs for you, kid. But it predictably, has a slow start to his time there, but then the team gets behind him a little bit. He gets settles in with the team a little bit, and suddenly, as in all the sports movies, the team starts doing well.
What is John Candy is the radio announcer. And I want to bring him up for a second because his role is quite unique in this film. He is not credited in the scroll at the end of the movie. You had told me how was his introduction into this movie, because like I said, he's not originally on the list as an actor for this movie.
Yeah, John Candy is uncredited as the radio play-by-play voice of the Cubs. He's doing not quite a Harry Carey impersonation, because that would be sacrilegious, but he's doing a Harry Carey. He's trying to just be the definite Homer voice of the team radio guy. And he happened to come by to visit the set one day, and he was friends with the director and one of the actors. We'll get into that a little bit later. But he's friends with both of them. And so he was, hey, you got anything for me? And it was, sure, we can come up with something. We can come up with something for you. Absolutely, we can come up with a part for you. And so they gave him the part of the radio play-by-play voice of the Cubs. And so it's for what was probably only a day or two's worth of filming. He is in a large portion of the film. Which is, some of that obviously is editing, but some of that is also just, I'm sure they had him involved quite a bit, because there's a good half dozen or so scenes that he is in, and they're fairly long and lengthy and involved as the play-by-play guy.
Yeah, for someone to just walked on set and said, hey, do you have anything for me? He's in several scenes and takes on a very... for a side role, it's pretty prominent. If not super frequent, it's significant.
Yep. Oh yeah. It is definitely a busy role. It is definitely a very busy cameo role for John Candy. But then, yeah, you were explaining the great line that he gives partway through when Henry gets going a little bit as the closer of the Cubs.
Oh yeah, their winning streak.
Yes, their winning streak.
The longest streak of the season, 2 games.
And they're in August at this point.
And they're in August. So it's I looked at Adam while we were watching this movie. I said, how realistic is it for you to go from last place in the division in August to winning the division and then going to the World Series.
Yeah, notice that. Yeah, this is in the days of before the National League Central. This is just the national when the Cubs are part of the National League East.
1993.
By the way, yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, movie aside, you know, we'll talk more about the movie in a second. Just Wrigley as it was back then. You know, it's undergone so many different changes since then. But I mean, 1993, you didn't have the technology wasn't around for the big LED scoreboards and all the technology. It's seeing the cameras, the photography cameras and the TV cameras. It takes you way back there. Maybe I'm just being overly nostalgic, but having grown up, you know, in the 90s, it's interesting taking a look back at Wrigley and everything that surrounded it. How they took care of it. I think there's a couple scenes in there. I don't know if they still do this. They go through and they wipe down all the seats before every game. But Wrigley looks quite a bit different now than what it did back then. Still have the manual scoreboard, one of 2 ballparks in the country that has that manual scoreboard, which is one to take note of. I remember watching the movie back then. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, what's this manual scoreboard? What is this? Because I grew up with the big screens and the automatic ones in the Metrodome. So it was just interesting seeing another ballpark in all of its glory.
Yeah, it is really, especially, and we'll get into this a little bit more after we take a quick break here, but yeah, it is something of the movie going back, and it is, for as much as any time you go to Wrigley, there is very much a time capsule kind of feel, because by and large, the stadium really hasn't changed since it was Wigham Park over 100 years ago when it was first built. It really hasn't changed that much. But at the same time, the neighborhood around it has changed dramatically in the 30 years since the film was shot, and you really get a real scope and feel of that watching the movie. But we'll real quick finish the wrap-up of the movie here real quick without giving away spoilers. Of course, because the whole thing isn't just baseball. You do get a little bit into Henry as a 12-year-old. He still has to go to school. He still has friends. He's got a budding relationship with... He's starting to discover girls, and that comes into the movie a little bit too.
Yeah, there's a couple different scenes outside of the initial when he breaks his arm, where this young lady and her friends, who they also appear in a scene together later on in the movie, but they, you know, he's grown up with a single mom. They have a very close relationship. I remember in the featurette that's included in the DVD, the actress that plays his mom does discuss, you know, her role in their relationship. It's a mother-son. They're super close. He's very protective of his mother. She's very protective of her son. But they're mother-son, but they're also best friends. She made that comment as well. So we've got a son-mother relationship. Henry's trying to figure things out, as every 12-year-old does. In addition to having this sudden career and being thrown into the limelight of being a professional baseball player on top of it. So a lot for a 12-year-old, you know, conceivably to deal with. And they kind of show some of that fight and struggle throughout the movie, which we'll get into a little bit later.
But if you haven't seen it, Rookie of the Year, outstanding movie. I mean, for both of us, it's a... Yes, you hear people talking about when they're talking about baseball movies. You're talking about things like 42, League of Their Own, Major League, Major League 2, The Sandlot. For us, this is a movie that's still right up there with all those. Yes, it's a kid movie. Yes, the baseball stuff doesn't always make sense, and we will get into some of that. We will critique some of the baseball as baseball in it. But it's at its core, it's a fantasy movie. It's every kid's fantasy growing up. You get to play for your favorite team growing up, and it just taps into everybody like that. That's something that speaks to everybody who's a sports fan, and especially somebody who became a sports fan as a kid.
Yes, absolutely. It's so relatable. It's funny. It's great. If for no other reason, Siskel and Ebert, two very big movie critics back in the day. 2 thumbs up for sure. And they're, like I said, they're incredibly harsh critics. But yeah, just a fun, relatable movie for any kid. And even, Daniel Stern was talking about, there's kid stuff, but there's grown-up stuff too to make everybody laugh.
There's grown-up stuff to make you laugh, and there's grown-up stuff that hits you a little bit too. We'll dive into some of that next. You are listening to a special Sunday edition of Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We are going to take a quick break, and then Stephanie and I will be back to discuss more of Rookie of the Year celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more.
Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a down south education on Florida sports and athletics. It's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And good afternoon, and welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly, everybody. A special Sunday edition. We're celebrating the 30th anniversary of Rookie of the Year. And before we go any further, I do want to say thank you to Larry B. for playing Soundman for us during that first segment. We're having a few audio difficulties. We'll stick with that word. I can now actually hear us, and that's going to make everything so much easier here for the rest of the show. So thank you for bearing with us as we got through some small bumps to start the show. And in case you're just tuning in and you're saying, us, what, has he got a mouse in his pocket today? No, my wife Stephanie is joining us today on the program, on the show, because Rookie of the Year is one of her favorite movies. And so with it celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, we thought this would be a fun opportunity. Just like Larry and his wife Cecilia every Friday night go on Sports Couple Perspective and dive through the world of sports and pop culture, we would combine forces and talk about one of our favorite sports movies, specifically one of our favorite baseball movies.
A question just crossed my mind. How much about this movie did you know before we met?
Oh, I'd watched it. Okay. I knew it. I hadn't watched it for a while. I mean, it's not like it was one that I would routinely do, but I remember specifically, you're holding the box there. I remember looking for that for you. I don't even remember if we were married yet. I think that might have been a Christmas present while we were dating.
I think it was a Christmas present. Yep. More recent though. We'd been married a little while. I think we had
we?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But
I knew it was early on though, because I knew it was just one of your favorites.
Oh my goodness! I think I wore out the VHS tape. Kind of being dated a little bit there, but yeah, I think I literally wore out the VHS tape. You know, back when we used to watch VHS tapes, the top of the picture starts bending a little bit because the tape's wearing out. Yeah, I think I watched it that much.
And why not? It's a fun movie. All right, so we dove through the plot in the first segment, and we'll fill in some of the gaps. As we were talking during the break there, we realized there were one or two things that we'll fill in a little bit, but let's kind of analyze it a little bit as a baseball movie now. How does it hold up as a baseball movie? We talked about how it starts off opening day at Wrigley Field, and they filmed at Wrigley Field. Yes. So the baseball scenes, a lot of them are legitimate baseball scenes, and so much of the film was done at Wrigley Field. So to me, that's a huge check mark in the plus category for the movie, that they're right there. You can't get more authentic than filming at Wrigley.
I mean, it's hard to do a Chicago Cubs movie without being at Wrigley. But one of the biggest scenes in the movie, just to kind of put a little perspective on it, and it's Thomas Ian Nicholas's favorite scene, actually. filmed during a Cardinals Cubs doubleheader. Full stands. It's when he first walks out in his first game. It's a memory that sticks in his mind. I can't remember which. I think it was an interview with E.T. That he did. Not on the most recent anniversary, but the 20-year, I believe. But yeah, that when he first walks out, I can't imagine being 12 years old, taking that long walk from it's a different bullpen. You know, the bullpen back then is not what the bullpen is now. That's all enclosed. But just, you're warming up with all this crowd noise. And then you're walking out as a 12-year-old in front of 35,000 people to pitch.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last night when we were watching the movie, and that's a legitimate phenomenon that actual adult pitchers, when they first get called up from the minors, they refer to it sometimes as the third deck syndrome, where you walk out onto the field, you get on the pitcher's mound, and you realize this stadium has a third deck. I'm not in the minors, and I'm not in Kansas anymore, Toto. I've made it. Whoa. So that, I can understand why for, young Thomas, he's all of 12 years old when they're filming that scene, that would be that would stick with you for your entire life, standing on the pitching mound at Wrigley Field with 35,000 people, maybe not chanting your name, the name of a character you're playing.
He actually said that for a while he believed he was Henry because they were all chanting that name so loud. He's like, for a minute, I was Henry. I was my character, because it was just such an encapsulating, overwhelming moment for him. And some of there's a little clip during the featurette. He and Daniel Stern are going through the realization that Henry, I'm actually doing this. They were practicing his line between scenes, and they actually got that little snippet into the featurette. But I believe some of that, if not most of the look on his face as he walks to the mound is legitimate, as an actor and also playing his character personally.
Oh, yeah, that just... I can imagine having that be your reaction and getting into character. That's so cool. And if the name Daniel Stern is familiar to you, but you're going, wait a minute, he's not a director. Daniel Stern is probably most famous for being half of the Sticky Bandits from the Home Alone movies.
Also personal favorites of ours.
Also, yes. Harry, I've reached the top.
Just, again, a couple family staples from when we were growing up in the 90s.
But, so Daniel Stern was Marv. This is his first and only movie that he's directed. And he also then wrote himself a little tiny part that he plays. He plays the Cubs pitching coach. Is it Brickma?
Yeah, Brickma.
And Brickma is... Let's just say he got hit upside the head one too many times in the minor leagues.
Actually, there's a reference to that from Sal Martinell, the character that's the head, that's the coach for the Cubs.
Yeah, the Cubs manager.
The Cubs manager.
Says, yeah, I beamed him once in the minors, and he's been following me around ever since.
Some interesting theories coming from Brickma. It's that Brickma is such a different character from the Home Alone movies. It took me a while to actually connect the two. That they were the same person from Home Alone, and he was the director and character in this movie. It took me, ashamed to say, a couple decades to figure this out. I'm like, why this guy feels familiar.
Well, yeah, it's Marv.
Yeah, it's Marv. I haven't seen much of Daniel Stern outside of his element to know, but he acts like Adam said, he's been hit by one too many baseballs.
And that's some of that relationship too. Some of that feels very genuine. The other big character that we haven't mentioned to this point is played by Gary Busey. He is Chet Stettman, the star pitcher for the Cubs, very, very, very loosely based off of Roger Clemens, who was a pitcher, I think, for the Rangers at that point in the 90s, but eventually, later on for the Yankees and such throughout his MLB career. And Busey gets put in charge of making sure that Henry not only does he just throw the ball fast, but actually pitches. And his initial reaction is the same as I think what any players would be is, look, that's Brickman's job. He's the pitching coach. Why do I have to babysit this kid?
I think I know where you're going with this.
But then he takes him under his wing and he begins to enjoy baseball again as he's teaching Henry how to throw. And they have a meeting on the mound that is absolutely hysterical. For whatever reason, the manager, one of the first times, Rowan Gardner, who nobody ever says his last name right in the movie, Rosenbagger, Rolenfruta, he's got all these nicknames from the manager. Gardenhoser.
My favorite one's Rapid Boozer.
And he tells him, look, you've been working with the kid, get out there. And Busey is immediately, what do I say? What am I supposed to do? Well, you've been working with him, get out there.
I'm working with him for all of 2 days, right?
Right.
Yeah, this trip to the mound happened. I mean, they threw him out there without any kind of training whatsoever. The general manager for the Cubs, Larry Fish or Fisher, played by Dan Hedaya, calls down to the
dugout.
The dugout, baby brain. Sorry, down to the dugout, and is like, put the kid in, and he's like, the kid, he's not ready. And not only did they throw Henry out on the mound, they threw him out on the mound without any kind of training whatsoever. But yeah, Chet goes out there, and they have this discussion about the have to. And Henry's like, are you speaking English? The have to. So this entire conversation happens, and then he walks away after this enlightening conversation, which apparently turns things around, because he does quite well after that. And he's like, what the heck was he talking about? And Chet was like, what the heck was I talking about? And then the manager asks him when he gets to the dugout, he said, so what'd you tell him? And he looks at him and said, yeah, you wouldn't understand. So that's just one piece of the comedy that's in this throughout this entire movie. But Chet's character, not only is he training this young man, he also kind of becomes somewhat of a father figure to him, which we'll get into a little bit later too. But from a baseball perspective, I mean, throwing a pitcher out there without, any training at all, let alone, at least the adults have the benefit of coming up through the minors. I mean, Henry is a disgruntled, somewhat challenged little leaguer. All of a sudden, you're throwing him out in front of these, 25, 26-year-old men who could probably smash the ball pretty hard. But, he holds his own against all these adults as well, throwing, 100-mile-an-hour fastballs. I mean, that's fast for anybody, let alone a 12-year-old kid.
I mean, that's Aroldis Chapman, from the World Series fast.
Yeah,
that's which today, 100-mile-an-hour hurler is, I shouldn't say common, but not as uncommon. It's heard of. We've seen it. We know what it looks like. In 1992, 93, when the movie was released, 100 miles an hour, I mean, your list was basically Randy Johnson, and that was it.
Yeah, nobody was throwing balls that fast.
It's certainly not a 12-year-old kid. But yeah, the discussion on the mound where they get done and both of them had the same reaction of, what was that? What was that conversation? But it works. It works.
Yeah, it gives them their longest winning streak of the season.
Streak of the year. Two games. But from there, and this gets a little bit into the adult side of it. We talked about how on the adult side, it's more than just comedy that works on the adult side. My favorite scene in the whole thing they get done with a game. Henry comes out and he steps out onto the field and sees that his two best friends and his mom are still sitting there waiting for him. And he immediately calls for his best friends, come on, let's get out on the field. And they start pretending to play a game. And they pretend to swing the bat and run the bases, and that it naturally turns into a game of tackle because they're 10, 11-year-old boys. Everything becomes a game of tackle eventually if you let it go long enough. Meanwhile, the other Cub players are stepping out onto the field, and they see this, and they just see the joy of these kids running the bases, running around the baseball diamond, and they start to have, it loosens them up. You know, we talk a lot in sports that losing can be so hard on the players that you just keep losing. It feels like you're pounding your head against the wall and you're not getting anywhere. It can take a toll, and you can forget. It's easy to forget that, oh yeah, we're playing a game. It's okay to have fun. And so they have this moment of seeing these kids having fun, and the whole team is able to loosen up. And then they go on the road trip, and Henry winds up batting, which that loses a lot of baseball realism for me. While, yes, it's not completely unheard of that your closer would bat.
Let alone him being 12.
Yeah, let alone him being 12. Let's just say that it would have to be incredibly unique circumstances that your closer would bat.
They're having him bat in the bat for movie's sake. Now, I will say, this is one of my favorite portions of the movie.
And it's fun, too, because, again, he gets on base. He draws a walk because, his strike zone is infinitesimally small. The pitcher even says, where's the strike zone? I can't throw a strike to this kid. So he gets on base, and he immediately begins playing like the little leaguer he is. He gets off first and starts antagonizing the pitcher. Pitcher, pitcher, pitcher. Pitcher's got a big butt. Hey, pitcher, you got a booger hanging out of your nose. And all these little league things. His own teammates in the dugout are going, oh my God, what's he doing? No, you can't do that.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, Chet Steadman and the manager, they're both like trying to shut him down, and the rest of the team is like rolling in the dugout watching him do this. Like, it's like it's the point you said before. He's bringing back that love for the game. I mean, you see, I'm kind of going backwards a little bit, but you start at the beginning in the movie, and there's this 12-year-old kid in our clubhouse. Like, now, who are we, babysitters? And they've put the work in, they've gone through the minors, and all of a sudden this kid, throws one ball. I think his audition was 4 pitches. How many players come into a baseball team at 12, let alone 12 years old, but by throwing 4 pitches in the movie?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden this annoying little kid is around, and they start, they're smug, they're angry, they're frustrated. I think he sits in somebody's seat, and he's like, pitchers are over there, and they're all glaring at him too. This lighthearted nanny, 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 and they're all laughing at him. So by this point, they're in September. We're getting to the end of the scene. He's been with them for, a solid month. So he's bringing the joy back into the game for them.
Yeah, he starts doing the little league, which would absolutely, totally Bush League, totally if a professional were doing this, if it was an adult, oh yeah, you're getting pegged.
It would be taunting.
Yeah, you're...
Fines, kicked out of the game.
And indeed, the the opposing pitcher does being one of the batters and points right at him and says, "That's for you, kid." You know, he is breaking the unwritten rules of baseball by doing it. But again, the team it loosens everybody up. They have fun. They start having fun with it again. So it does hit a little bit on some actual sports things. It's not just a kids movie with that in that regard.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of the big spur on moment. All of their success. That scene leads into even Henry's success. You know, that he makes it to the cover of Sports Illustrated. He's striking out everybody left and right. Speaking of baseball moments, there are 3 cameo appearances by actual baseball players in this movie. Barry Bonds.
Yeah, get this list of players that this 12-year-old kid strikes out.
So Barry Bonds is the first one. Okay. And the other 2, they're escaping me at the moment. I'm sorry.
Vlad Guerrero and Bobby Bonilla.
And
Bobby Bonilla, not just a guy that gets paid by the Mets every July 1st. He actually did play at one point.
Yeah. So he strikes out all 3 of them, and the Barry Bonds being the third one kind of he swings, he strikes out, grabs his bat at the end, and just kind of does one of these, whoo, this kid's got something moment. But it's, you know, you've got In the Mood by Glenn Miller playing in the background, and, you know, the team is winning, they're successful. Kind of a great way to kind of progress them through the season quickly for the movie's sake. But yeah, they're well into September at this point.
Yeah. And then we don't want to spoil the movie, but shocker of shockers, they wind up playing in a winner-take-all game against the Mets for the NL East title. This is a kids movie again. That's one of the... Really? Because they were in last place in the NL East in August, and now a month later they've caught everybody. Now, granted, we're not ever told just how far behind they were, but if a 2-game winning streak was their longest of the season, they had to have been way behind.
Well, they had Henry Rowan-Gardner throwing on the mound. I mean, they won every game after that. I mean, that's kind of insinuated. You know, he strikes out. He does nothing but throw strikeouts, right? He doesn't do walks. He doesn't throw anything but strikes.
We do see him induce a double play.
Yes.
That's his first successful...
That was the first pitch after the have to conversation that
right.
Nobody seems to understand.
Yeah, he does actually induce a double play. From then out, yeah, everything we see is strikeouts. We don't see him actually give up a hit or anything like that ever again through the movie. So obviously, some serious liberties are being taken. But...
Movie magic.
Movie magic, exactly. Movie magic. The other, though, we have a fun moment in the end. Again, we don't want to give away spoilers too much. It is a 30-year-old movie, after all. They pull off the hidden ball trick to absolute perfection.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. That anytime you see a hidden ball trick executed, I love it. And they do it as well as you'll ever see it done in the movie. So props to them for that. I love that. The other moment that gets to me is in this big winner-take-all game. They have the Gary Busey character starts, and you can tell he's getting to the end of his rope.
He's already had a major surgery to fix his shoulder. You know, that's, you know, I think that's part of the character building too. He's seeing
Larry's
through
loving
Henry.
the non-realism, by the way.
He's seeing kind of a shadow of his former self. You know, growing up through Pee Wee leagues and his passion for the game, which he's lost in being an adult. But then, you know, his gift, this gift of pitching, which got interrupted by it sounds like a major injury or maybe Tommy John's or something.
Probably rotator cuff. Probably.
Yeah, probably.
He always talks about his shoulder. He doesn't know when his shoulder is going to go.
He wants this one more.
Yeah.
He wants one more batter, one more pitch, because he can feel and sense that he's at the end.
To set it up a little bit, he's given up a couple hits in a row. One has led to a run, and the manager gives him that look that everybody who's watched a baseball game has seen this interaction of,
we're 6 innings in.
I'm coming for you. You did great. You're done, but you're done. I gotta come for you. And he looks at him and one more. Give me one more. And the manager gives it to him. We have it. When he comes back in from the dugout, he even comes in and he says, "Stick a fork in me. I'm done." And the manager gives him a look and he says, "No, I'm done. I felt the shoulder go." And he gets this look just for a minute where you can see he gave everything to the game, that he got the chance to give his all for the game. And it's a short little moment, and it moves right on and becomes a kid's movie again. But it's another moment where there's something there for the adults too, especially the sport-loving adults that are seeing it, where you recognize it and you just go, wow.
Yeah, he gave everything he did to the sport. He kind of going back a little bit in the movie when he and Henry have developed this closer relationship. It was a rain day at Wrigley. There was no game, so everybody was in the clubhouse doing various things. He was playing his Game Boy and had a meeting with the general manager, and they had basically told him, they said, we're benching you. And then at the end of the season, we're going to release you. So he actually ends up taking Henry home, and when they're in the car, they have a moment together too. And this is kind of when, there was some hinting at him being a father figure previously in the film, but this was like their solidifying moment. He looked at him and said, "Don't take this game too seriously. One day your gift will be gone, and it'll be over." So, I mean, again, just several moments for the adults. As a kid, I don't think I appreciated those scenes the same way. I related more to the kid stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, just several adult moments. The other one, again, towards the end of the film, is a moment between him and his mother. Again, not giving away too much of the plot. Looks like we're going to be talking about that here soon. Not right away. I'm getting the signal to hold on to that thought for just a moment.
No, I was just meaning don't give anything away.
Oh, okay.
Don't give anything away.
A moment between him, he's on the mound, trying to figure out a tough situation he's in, and he looks down, and the glove that he has, he takes the tape off, and it's, to this point, it was this big story about his dad being the big pitcher. Throughout the movie, she does some of these floater pitch with sunscreen a couple times. So there's some hints there. Again, as a child, it kind of goes over your head. But as an adult, you're going, wait a second. Floater pitching. Turns out she was the pitcher. She did the floater pitch. She was the pitcher that she was saying that his father was, to try to bring him into the picture a little bit more. Because again, it's been him and his mom for so long.
Yeah, the relationship between the mom, she even introduces herself at first as Henry's mom, and then has to be reminded, no, that's not your name. You do have a name. Oh yeah, it's Mary. But the relationship between Mary and Henry really is developed. One guy we haven't even talked about at all. We've been doing this for an hour. There is an adult boyfriend for the mom, and there's a whole dynamic there. He winds up becoming Henry's personal agent, if you will. There's a whole dynamic that, at this point, let's not worry about getting into. Suffice to say, there's a lot of stuff there that as an adult hits you a lot differently. That, like you were saying, would go over your head as a kid, as the agent becomes more and more and more.
He becomes less of a boyfriend and more of a villain.
He sees Henry as his ticket to glory, basically, and you see his kind of downfall there. A lot of that as a kid goes right over your head. It's just very simplistic of he's bad, and you just kind of move on from there.
Yeah, he's not Henry's. He's trying to be. he thinks Henry is liking him, but because of the close relationship that Henry had with his mother, he shows very early on he's not in favor of Jack being Mom's boyfriend very early on, and you can see it throughout the film. It kind of just stays that way. But yeah, he gets more and more, less and less about Mary and Henry, and more about the money. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to give away any spoilers here, but that's just kind of...
It does. Dark isn't quite the right word,
No.
because it always stays a kid's movie. At its
Yeah.
heart, it's always a fantasy kids movie at its very core, at its very heart. But there are definitely moments, and that's one, where there's something a little extra there for the adults, for sure.
Well, and even perspective as a child, just, mom trying to find somebody, and then he just turns out to, and I think there is a moment that particular scene I'm thinking of where things took a huge paradigm shift. Even she realizes that the situation of which that they're in.
Yeah.
I'm fumbling over my words because I'm like, I don't want to give away what happens in that scene because I want you to see the movie and but yeah, it's like you're saying, it's very much an adult relatable scene. I think kid wise too, in that particular sense.
Very much so.
Because there's a very intimate moment between Henry and his mom following that scene.
Yeah.
So
it's available, by the way. We're talking about Rookie of the Year, celebrating its 30th anniversary this summer. One of the best. Thomas Ian Nichols is the star of it. To people outside of Chicago, he's Kevin from American Pie. To people from Chicago, he's Henry Rowan Gardner. He's appeared at Wrigley Field many times, wearing the number 1 Rowan Gardner jersey on his back to throw out the first pitch. He's participated in the 7th inning stretch many times. He was actually there for the 2015 National League Championship Series as the Cubs took on the Mets. The Mets were the big bad opponent in Rookie of the Year, so they made that connection there. But he will always be in Chicago. He will always be Henry Rowan Gardner, or Ruhlenfruder, or Garden Hoser.
Rappenboozer.
Or Rappenboozer, whichever nickname you want to give for him.
Now Sal did call him right by his name one time.
Yeah, and it scared the heck out of everybody.
Yeah,
Nobody knew
he
who
looked
he was
at me
talking about.
He's like, it was the championship game in which it was right after Chet Stebbin lost his shoulder. His shoulder went out. He told him he was going in, and he looked at him and was like, "What did he call me?" So he did get his name right one time.
One time, but
I want to circle back real quick. There is, yes, the Mary's boyfriend does kind of become a little bit. I mean, if there's a villain in the film, there's not really a villain. But he's just kind of there, lurking in the background. Hato.
Oh,
the baseball player, the intimidating
Mets slugger,
bully of a baseball player. We see him in Henry's first pitching outing, and the gentleman who played him, I forget his name.
You're looking it up right now, so
Yeah.
while she's looking that up, he is, imagine Thor as a baseball player. Or actually, a better one, imagine Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove without the silly side, but he's all upper body, all arms, all chest, and that evil disposition and manner about him, stepping up and ready to just ruin Henry's debut.
He's like just his name is Tom Milanovich, Chicago native, but he's just this big bully. Just tells him right on, like the first thing he's like, "Where's your ma sitting? Where's mommy? I'm gonna hit this home run ball and like hit it to her just to kind of smug you, kind of a thing." Also makes an appearance at the end of the movie after Henry's had his career as kind of the Mets' last pull. They pull Hato, which is his character's name, out of the bag and it's a much different encounter. But he looks at him, he's like, "Remember me, kid?" And he's stepping into the batter's box, scratches the dirt. He rubs his hands on the baseball bat, and like sawdust is falling off of this bat. Cracks me up now, but at the time, as a kid, that's pretty intimidating. This big, like 6'2" giant bodybuilder of a man who's a bully.
He's a lumberjack and he's okay.
Just stepping up to the plate, like am I gonna die in this outing, kind of a thing? Is he gonna hit me with the baseball? But yeah, Hato is the bully, the other villain per se of the and even the team has respect for him because they even say, "Oh my goodness, it's Hato."
Yeah, it's
John
Hato.
Candy makes sure it's, "Oh my goodness, it's Hato." So he's a pretty down smacking guy in terms of his success. He's a home run hitter. I mean, he really is. It's the guy eats fastballs for breakfast kind of a situation. So he makes 2 appearances, and they're both very intimidating, kind of grown-up playground bully type stuff. But yeah, he gets his hands in position on his bat, and the sawdust falls off. That's hilarious to me. But they're just setting him up as this guy that's just going to make your day end. He's just going to end your day. Just rain on your parade as a batter.
Yep. So, again, the movie is Rookie of the Year. It's celebrating its 30th anniversary. Available on Disney Plus for streaming platforms, or, of course, available to rent all the kind of Amazon Prime and all your streaming platforms there. Or the DVD is really cheap at this point. You could probably get it for under $10. And it's not bad. You've got a million trailers for it on the special features. That's basically what the special features are all the television spots for the movie at this point. Daniel Stern, the only film he directed. Thomas Ian Nichols is the star. John Candy cameos as the Cubs play-by-play radio man. Some other 90s stars in there too. Well worth the watch, well worth your time. We're going to take a fast break, and then on our way back out, before we get out of here, we had our first family excursion to a baseball game here this past week. And I thought we'd take a couple of minutes, just talk about it before we get out of here. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your 5-hole.
Catch The Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
What's up? It's your man Bishop, the voice of This Is KC Sports, the show where we go over the Chiefs, the Royals, KC Current, Sporting KC, MU, and oh yeah, if we got time, we'll even throw in some of that KU stuff for my people on the 913 South. Come and hang out with us every Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy Dentarius Lava.
And we're the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Adam Karnick and Stephanie Karnick also along with today, celebrating the 30th anniversary of one of the best baseball movies of all time, Rookie of the Year, filmed right here in Chicago with some Chicago connections. We got a little bit of trivia for you for the movie before we make our exit, and we turn things over later on tonight to the Fast Break team, Davidson and Dentarius. They will be breaking down that epic between the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat last night. The Celtics were facing elimination. They were down by, I think it was a point or two. They scored a bucket on a putback with a tenth of a second left on the clock to win the game. So they got some things to talk about tonight. You can catch them 7 o'clock tonight Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock Pacific, wherever you are in between there. You can catch them tonight. But we're going to finish up a little bit here with some trivia. We already talked some things. We mentioned Daniel Stern, the director, also best known for playing Marv in the Home Alone movies. Macaulay Culkin was one of the studio's choices to play Henry. Daniel Stern really wasn't keen about having him because he didn't want too many of his Home Alone co-stars in there with him. Joe Pesci was also somebody that the studio wanted, playing the role of the pitcher Chet Stetman, and Daniel Stern turned that one down. Macaulay Culkin was busy filming another movie at the time, so that was pretty easy. John Candy, we talked about him. He basically just walked onto the set and said, "Hey, Dan, have you got anything for me to do here?" And they came up with the role of the play-by-play man for him. Some other trivia and tidbits there. Now, Larry, I remember you mentioning that your wife, Cecilia, is basically a walking version of the IMDb. She may recognize the girlfriend in the movie if she's ever seen the movie D2 or D3 from the Mighty Ducks series. She might recognize the girlfriend for Henry in her first.
Yep. When you told me that last night, I'm like, I connected the dots again. How have I gone all this time not realizing this?
Colombe Jacobson Durstein. This was her feature film debut was Rookie of the Year. She's now a chef in New York, I was reading.
Neil Flynn, Stan Oki, the first baseman, probably most known recently for being a dad in The Middle. He was the first baseman. I'm just trying to think. Of course, Daniel Stern we've talked about. Thomas Ian Nicholas also in A Kid in King Arthur's Court. And of course, we mentioned American Pie.
Yep, the American Pie film series. That's probably what he's best known for.
So some different appearances by several throughout the cast. I find it hilarious. IMDb calls Barry Bonds and his associates that were at the plate, they call them the three big whiffers.
Yeah.
Bobby Bonilla. So the three big whiffers, the strikeouts that Henry threw. So they're deemed as the three big whiffers.
And I was trying to get one other fun name here. There's actually a legitimate pitcher that appears in the film. He was the technical advisor for a lot of the baseball scenes.
Actually on the Cubs team.
And he was a member of the 1984 Cubs team that lost to the Padres in the National League Championship Series. An epic Cubs loss, one of the more epic Cub implosions in their history.
The other piece of information, I actually just came to my knowledge today. I was, in lieu of not having the How We Made It or the cast interviews and things like that available. They didn't film them back then because it was film. It wasn't digital where you have all these different gag reels, and you look up things on streaming services, and they've got these for Star Wars, these hour-long featurettes on the making of. There wasn't a whole lot of film available to do that.
Well, that and 30 years ago, if you were going to bother to produce it, you were going to be releasing it. Now it's just, we're going to be filling the DVD with extras.
Sure.
30 years ago, you had to have a reason to producing this stuff. Almost everything that's on the DVD is clearly made for television promotion of the film.
Sure. One of the tidbits of information I found out in an interview today, they were filming this, because of when they were filming this, it was October, November, they had to actually put some camo nets up in the outfield because the ivy was succumbing to winter. So they had to put some pretend ivy up to kind of bridge that gap as the ivy was preparing itself for winter.
Yeah. Yeah, because the ivy turns red and goes dormant there for a while. And, of course, the film takes place in the summer. So that's the last little bit of trivia for us here is, again, just going back to Wrigley, it's amazing how many things have changed in the park, but also how many things have stayed the same with the park. You can tell at a moment's notice you're in Wrigley Field, even if you've only been in Wrigley Field within the last 5 years. Obviously, the electronic boards aren't up there. All the Gallagher Way and all the hotels and all the parking garages and the recent buildings that are there aren't there. This is early 90s where Wrigley was literally a ballpark in a neighborhood where the mailman would be stopping by on his daily routes and sometimes wind up with a home run ball that wound up on either Waverly or Sheffield and have to ask ours or theirs.
Even the fan shop, where all the merchandise is, that wasn't there.
No.
That wasn't there even when we were in college even.
Nope, that's
all post World Series.
Yeah, that's all within the last 5-6 years that all that stuff has come up. But yet you can, again, you just know you're at Wrigley.
It's such a different feel, I think, because it is one of the oldest parks in the country. You walk into it and it's like walking into a time capsule. Even with all the modernization, you can still see the original Wrigley. Yep. Part of which I think it adds to the ambiance of the film. It's such a family environment. It's been baseball for so long. But what a great place to film! What a great film, Daniel Stern. Sad that this is the only film that he did, because I feel like if he did any other ones, they would be similar in quality and even comedy. Like the guy's a comic. He's hilarious.
He did a good job. It's a really well done, well made film. It's surprising that it's his only film as a director. He did a really good job.
Yeah, he did do a really good job, and even directing and acting.
Yeah, the little bit that he does is Brickma.
So, having to jump back and forth behind the camera and back into film. But yeah, just a great film, all around, great family friendly. It's a great thing to watch. It's definitely a piece of Americana for sure.
Yes. Yep. Very, very much a Cubs version of Little Big League.
It's a different. Being a fan of both films, both teams. The Twins, by the way, is the one. When Adam and I got married, I said, "Hey, I'll become a Chicago fan of every team, but I'm keeping my Twins." So just a piece of hilarious trivia there. I was not giving up my baseball affiliation with the Twins. So I do have a dual royal sense there between both teams. I do have to admit I follow the Cubs more than I do the Twins. I think some of that's just because I'm married to you. But it's even Little Big League it's just a different film. If I had to pick between the two, I would say Rookie of the Year is still my favorite.
There you go. There you have it. 30th anniversary of Rookie of the Year. If you've not seen it, check it out. Disney Plus.
See it.
You can rent it on your streaming platforms, or again, you can find the DVD for relatively inexpensive. It's not one that's going to break the bank to add to your movie library. We had a little bit of fun as a family here this past week. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll be on our way. Now, for Stephanie and myself, a little peel back behind the curtain here. The South Bend Cubs in South Bend, Indiana, are a team that is very near and dear to us. Our first date was going to a South Bend Cubs game. They were still the Silverhawks then. They were actually still affiliated with the Diamondbacks. Now they've become affiliated with the Cubs. It's still our favorite date night. We got the opportunity to take both our kids there this past week. We were there for 9 innings. We were the last fans out of the stadium. I think we saw combined between us maybe 3 innings of baseball. But I don't know about you. I had an absolute blast.
Oh, yeah. Now, I had the baby attached to me the whole time, basically. Now, the trip was taken. It was a school outing, actually. Grace's school. We all went as a fairly large group of folks. Great price for the ticket, dog, and a beverage, I believe. But we got to go with her classmates. We got to go with the parents. Kind of our first big post-COVID outing. But, and to kind of paint the landscape a little bit, Four Winds Field, located South Bend, Indiana, in the middle of the city. Again, another stadium that has changed significantly.
Oh my gosh, you don't have to tell me.
There's so many different things there to do. It's become more kid friendly too, with the bounce houses, and they have like a little splash pad over in right field, right behind Ben's Pretzels there.
You can guess where our daughter wanted to be for the whole game. Hint, not in her seat watching the baseball game.
Well, but though it was really cute, she had an oversized bucket of popcorn that I think she ate almost the whole thing.
That was her lunch. Yeah.
But
dad.
Not her first game. It was her second game. Her first game she was significantly younger.
She was maybe 15 months.
15 months, close to 2 years. But definitely a fun family outing. When you have kids that age, it's less about the game, more about the experience. I know you had a chance to go with her to the bounce houses, and how is that over there? It's just the kids get an armband and they get to go between bounce houses. It's a giant kid experience over in left field behind the camping or the picnic area.
She had a blast. She wanted to go there as soon as she saw it. It was, Dad, they have a bounce house. Well, wait till Mom and brother at least know where we are. Then we can go over there. We spent a good hour over there at that bounce house.
And it was his brother's time to eat. Now this is how great, speaking as a mom, how cool it is, and how far we've come as a society. There is actually a privacy pod near the main gate where you can go as a mom and take care of your child. So I was able to take Noah there and feed him and bring him back out and have that privacy to do so. But again, family friendly atmosphere, everything from the hot dog and the popcorn and everything in the bounce houses, and they even have a small section of kids stuff in the fan shop over in left field behind the bleachers there.
She asked when we can go again, so I think we did a good job.
Yeah, it was a great experience for all of us, and I will say, Noah cracks me up. He slept through most of the game. People screaming around him. I brought the noise canceling headphones just as a precaution. But everyone's screaming around. They're putting up the make more noise stuff on the billboards and stuff, and he's just sitting there. He's just open mouth snoring, sleeping through the whole thing. Talk about a chill kid. I did take my hands and cover his ears. Okay, being the protective mom that I am, but he slept through the whole thing.
But for Chicago fans, if you're looking for a family baseball adventure and you don't want to go to Wrigley, it's less than 2 hours from the city. Tickets are, I think they start at $12 is what they start at. Food's good. The atmosphere is outstanding for a family. Check out the South Bend Cubs. They got promoted a couple years ago. They're now the high A affiliate. They were the low A affiliate for the longest time, but they're now the high A affiliate of the Cubs in the Midwest League. Check them out. They're well worth your time.
Training facilities on site, open to the public. You can actually use their batting cages. And like Adam said, the walking taco is one of my personal favorites.
Oh.
And having, a hot dog with my ketchup, mustard, onions, and sauerkraut. When given the chance, and I don't have a baby on my stomach, whether internal or external.
I would highly recommend the Philly cheesesteak nachos, by the way. Your gut may not like you the next day, but they're so worth it.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, one of my former students, he made some really good. I think he actually, since he knew us, I think he gave us quite a bit extra than what he was supposed to. But yeah, those Philly cheesesteak nachos are the bomb as well. Dippin' Dots, then your standard hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken fingers, beer. They actually have
Round Barn.
Yes, Round Barn tap. I was going to say Baroda, which is where Round Barn is. But Round Barn, you can get wine, you can get mixed drinks, you can get their beer. The Kolsch, that's how we met Kolsch. One of our favorite beers.
So,
but great experience, family atmosphere. Depending on how big your party is, not necessarily the cheapest night, but it's definitely a fun-filled night. They have fireworks over the summer.
Saturday night fireworks. They have movies. They have different family events, concerts, things like that. So it's not just a baseball field, but yeah, Four Winds Field, South Bend Cubs, definitely a great, if you're away from the city or want to come out from the city for a little bit of a different pace of a night, definitely come check it out. Absolutely. All right, that is going to do it. You were worried that you weren't going to make it for an hour. You made it for an hour and a half, Stephanie.
I like this game. I like baseball in general.
Baseball. All right. Want to thank Larry B. not only for hanging out with us in the chat room this afternoon, but for all the work you do behind the scenes of IE Sports Radio, sir. You are the czar. You are the maitre d'. You make everything happen. So thank you, sir. Thank you to Taryn for hanging out with us in the chat room as well. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Rays, Endless Great, Key to the Gate, and Anonymous. Coming up next, it's Fast Break. Dentarius Locke, Davidson Crooks, they're going to be breaking down that wild finish from the Boston Celtics, Miami Heat. I have a feeling the Miami Heat are turning back into a pumpkin in front of our very eyes. They will have that all for us. You will next hear me next week, Monday. Chi-Town Weekly will be back on Monday nights starting next week, June, whatever that will be, the first Monday in June. But my other show, The Neutral Zone, Zach Puplis will be holding that down for us on Tuesday night. Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals. We've gone all the way to leading 6 games at this point. The Stars will not go away. So lots to break down there, plus some World Final, some Worlds going on. Canada winning the gold medal at Worlds. The U.S. for the second year in a row losing in the bronze medal game. Frustration there. Overtime in the semifinal game and in the bronze medal game. But lots to keep up with. Keep it dialed in right here on IE Sports Radio. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, I am Adam Karnick. Thank you so much to my wife for hanging out for us during this show. Thank you for coming and listening to us. We really appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed listening to it. Until next week, stay safe. We'll see you next time.